Hey guys, this video is intended to help you with the homework 65B. There are a couple of topics we have not yet covered, but those topics will be on the SOL. We hope to get to them right before the SOL, but in order for you to fully complete the SOL review packet, I want to go over them. So in a sense, these questions are kind of gifts. You can just write down the correct answer, but I'd really rather you try to understand exactly what we're doing in them. Okay, so the first question that we encountered was number 22. If you notice, the formula shown can be used to find A. It's the amount of money Raul has in savings account. So Raul wants to find the R, lowercase r, the rate of interest his money earns. Which equation is correctly solved for R? So what we're going to do here, this is called a literal equation. And if you notice, though, we only have variables here. So we've got P and PRT. Okay, so our whole goal is to solve for R. So we're going to solve this the same way that we solve for an equation for X, okay? But now instead of having numbers, we have variables. And we're going to use the same properties that we use, meaning commutative, associative, distributive, and also the equality. So whatever you do to one side of the equation, you do to the other, the golden rule of algebra. We're going to use those to actually solve for R. So the first thing that we need to do is to get R by itself is we need to move any other terms to the other side. So I'm going to start by just subtracting P. So on the left side, I have A minus P is equal to, well, P minus P is 0, so we're just left with P, lowercase r, and T. Okay, and now in order to get lowercase r by itself, I'm actually going to divide the right side by PT, and I'm going to do the same thing to the left side. So if I divide P divided by P, I get 1, and T divided by T is 1. So we're left with A minus P divided by PT, which is what R is equal to. So R is equal to A minus P divided by PT. So that would be D. All right, we got that. Solve that for lowercase r. All right, the next one we encounter is 23. It says a data set with an even number of data points is ordered from least to greatest. The middle two data points are represented by x1 and x2. Those are two different variables. So when you have a little subscript, it means they're two different ones. This formula can be used to find the median of the data set, which shows the formula solved for x1. So in this case, we're solving for x1. All right. So in order to get x1 by itself, we need to start by multiplying both sides by 2. Okay, so that'll be our first step. We're going to get rid of that fraction. So I'm going to multiply the left by 2 and the right by 2. So I end up with 2m is equal to, now these 2's would cancel out because 2 divided by 2 is 1. So 2m is equal to x1 plus x2. All right, now since we're solving for x1, in order to get x1 by itself, we simply subtract x2 from both sides of the equation. So x1 would be equal to 2m minus x2. So we got 2m minus x2. There it is. Okay, so that would be our answer. All right, the next one is question number 29. It says that this relation is an inverse variation. Which equation represents this relation? Okay, so an inverse variation says that if you take your x and your y and you multiply them together, you get a constant k. Okay, so an inverse variation shows that the inputs and the outputs are inversely related or inversely proportional. So as your x is getting bigger, your y would be getting smaller. Okay, so they're inversely proportional. Now, if I take my x and my y's in all of these examples, if you notice, and if I multiply them together, I'm going to get -8. All right, multiply your x and your y together. So if we wanted to take our -8, that would be your k. So xy would actually be equal to -8. All right, and if I look at my examples that I have A, B, C, and D, they're all solved for y. So if I wanted to solve for y, I would just divide by x. So my y would be equal to -8 divided by x. Okay, so there's my answer. And the other thing you could do is just put in all three examples and see which one works if you're not sure. Okay. All right, but we will have a lesson on direct and inverse variation when we get closer to the SOLs. All right, number 33 says two relationships are described. Karen drives 160 miles in 4 hours, and then she drove 80 miles in 2 hours. All right, Vernon cooked 6 hamburgers in 10 minutes, and then he cooked 9 hamburgers in 15 minutes. Which statement is true about these relationships? So let's start with relationship A, and let's think about, so Karen drove 160 miles in 4 hours, and then she drove 80 miles in 2 hours. Okay, let's think about it. How many miles would she drive in 0 hours? That would be 0, 0. So already we're looking at this line possibly going through the origin, so that would make it a direct variation. So 160, if you notice, as our inputs are going down, so are the outputs. Okay, so there is a direct variation with S. All right, let's look at T. So Vernon cooks 6 hamburgers in 10 minutes and 9 hamburgers in 15 minutes. All right, if we think about it, how many hamburgers would he make in 0 minutes? And if he made 0 hamburgers, that would be in 0 minutes. Okay. So in this case, notice your inputs as they're going up, the outputs are also going up. So this one would also be a direct variation. So it says both relationships are direct variations. So our answer would be B. Okay. All right. So that should be it for the ones that you needed help with. I think there's 1, 2, 3, and 4 of them. Okay. Good luck. Bye-bye.